So we've got Stronger, which is the story of Jeff Bauman, who was cheering on his girlfriend, Erin Hurley, at the finish line of the Boston Marathon in 2013 when, unfortunately, the bombs went off and he lost both of his legs. And there's a photo of him being rushed to an ambulance, being carried by Carlos Arredondo, who's a total stranger who just picked him up at the finish line. It just became this sort of iconic image of the bombing. And he later went on to provide help that identified one of the attackers. So he helped in the investigation, and like his information is what led them to one of the attackers. So he is played by Jake Gyllenhaal, and Erin is played by Tatiana Maslany from Orphan Black, and they did like a really amazing job. And what I think this film does a great job of doing is that it's not about the police investigation, which I don't know if anyone remembers Mark Wahlberg Patriots Day, which came out last year, which is very kind of action-packed. It's a Peter Berg film. This is really the story of like Jeff's recovery and kind of figuring out his life. And Jeff is not a perfect person. He is very human. He is very flawed, and what happened to him is extraordinary and horrible, but there are times when he's selfish, right? Because, like, yes, this thing happened to him, but it also happened to people around him, and they kind of, changed their whole lives to try and support him, and he's not always the most grateful about it in the beginning. And it's a process, recovery is a process, and PT is a process, and the fact that, your whole life is changed forever because of this. So I thought Jake Gyllenhaal did a super amazing job of making sure that this performance wasn't a caricature. And it's not that we knew a lot about Jeff beforehand. Obviously, he went on all the press, tours and morning shows and things like that, but, it's not like we knew a ton about the guy beforehand. And I actually had the chance to talk to him, which you will hear coming up soon, about
Jake Gyllenhaal.
To Jake Gyllenhaal. Although Jake Gyllenhaal and Jeff Bauman are doing a bunch of press together, they seem like buds, and they give each other crap all the time, and it's really funny to watch them interact. And so it was really interesting talking to Jake about that, because this isn't the first time he's played a live action person who he's met.
Right. Do they look alike at all?
They do not look alike.
Oh, okay.
Not particularly.
Right.
But it's fine. It's not one of those roles where you're like, yeah, this has to exactly be a lookalike person,
right? Because nobody knows him in the first place.
But it's just been fascinating kind of watching that unfold and talking to him about it. And I definitely spent half this movie sobbing, because I think I talked about it before, but I'm like a runner and I do marathons, and this is probably like one of my worst fears realized. And I didn't start running until I did my first 5K in March of 2013, and the Boston Marathon bombing happened in April of 2013. Wow. So I was like, oh, this is runner life. Right. And Jeff isn't a runner. This isn't a story about the marathon. This is a story about him and the sort of circumstances that he's under. And I thought Jake and Tatiana did such a good job of capturing like a real life dynamic. And I feel for these characters and who are people.
Sucked in as soon as you watch the trailer. You're like, oh, this is going to be so good and probably brutal to watch.
It is.
Right?
It's very hard to watch. Like they do. I'm squeamish. They don't shy away from showing like the end part of it, and just be prepared for that. Be prepared for it's the nitty gritty of recovery. And this movie just like messed me up, honestly. I was really upset watching it, but I think it's worth watching. And don't get me wrong, it is not a crazy 100% dark, depressing film. Like there are funny parts to it because Jeff is funny, and then Jake captures that humor. So
cool.
I think it's worth checking out. Again, just be warned going into it that it's going to be like there are painful parts to watch, and like you should be uncomfortable because you're supposed to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it 3.9 out of 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the highest in a while.
It's been, I was going to say, we're like on an upswing. Well, we were on an upswing, and now it's a little bit of a downturn, unfortunately. So Stronger is definitely the highlight of the weekend, but it's a jam-packed week, and we've got Kingsman: The Golden Circle opening, which is the sequel to Matthew Vaughn's British spy thriller, Kingsman: The Secret Service. Taron Egerton returns as Eggsy, and don't ask me how, but Colin Firth is back, and so is Mark Strong. And for those of you who didn't see the first one, sorry, spoilers, Colin Firth dies in the first one. So
he's back.
But he's back, and you'll have to see the movie to find out how.
Okay.
This time they're joined by their American counterparts, who are the Statesmen, and it's Jeff Bridges, Halle Berry, Pedro Pascal, and Channing Tatum, which great cast.
Yeah.
Julianne Moore is the baddie. If you like the original Kingsman, you're going to like this one, but this isn't as original or unique or probably even as entertaining as the first. Unfortunately, I don't think Julianne Moore's villain is as good as Samuel L. Jackson's the villain in the first one. He plays this crazy media tech tycoon who's Samuel L. Jackson, basically. And you're like, oh, that's awesome. And then Julianne Moore plays this weird drug cartel overlord who's mentally stuck in 1960s Americana. So her lair is this in the middle of the jungle, but it's a 60s diner. It's like, what? Exactly. That is the exact reaction. What? So it's all about fighting her as opposed to fighting the last one. The plots of these are not that complicated, right? It's a spy movie. Kingsman is based on a comic book, and I rewatched the first one right before I saw the second. I forgot how very violent these are. I was like, what is this rated? And then someone's head get chopped in half in the first one. I was like, they're rated R. I forgot that they were rated R. So it's rated R. Don't take your kids. It's based on a comic book, and I think Matthew Vaughn does a really great job of translating this sort of hyper-stylized fighting on screen, which can be good and bad because be prepared for about a bunch of these crazy 10 to 15 minute long, like slow-mo, crazy hyperbolic fights. And so if you're not into that, this film is not for you because that's a good portion of this entire film.
Yeah, it put me to sleep when I saw the first one.
Then you are definitely not going to see this one. Yeah, that you are not, if you were not a fan of the first, you are not going to see this one. I do think Taron Egerton is super charming as Eggsy. He's kind of this from the streets, but now dressed as a super dapper James Bond-esque spy. Colin Firth is the most charming human being on the planet, probably. And then I'll watch Jeff Bridges in anything, pretty much.
Yes.
Jeff Bridges is amazing.
I'll
watch Jeff Bridges in the Lyft commercials. I'm like, oh, hey, it's Jeff Bridges. I won't fast forward through this. So I don't think the sequel brought as much to the table as the first one did. I think it's enough of an homage to the first one that people will be interested in. You don't even need to have seen the first one necessarily. They give a bunch of hints or flashbacks. It's I went with someone who hadn't seen it. She just Wikipedia'd the first one and she's like, yeah, no, I knew what was going on. I was like, okay, great.
Awesome.
I guess.
I love that.
Mildish spoiler, but not because it's in the cast list, but Elton John is in it. He's the best part of this movie. He absolutely stole the show. It is worth seeing for Elton John's performance. He's crabby Elton John in it, and it's so funny.
Wait, is he playing himself?
He plays himself. He plays Elton John,
nice.
and it's so good. So that part was worth seeing. It's very over the top, so if you loved the first one, you'll be fine going to see this one. If you were lukewarm on the first one,
or fell asleep,
you probably are going to wait till this comes out on DVD or Blu-ray or something like that. If you did not like the first one or didn't see it, you're probably not going to go see this movie.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm gonna give it 3.2 out of 5.
Okay.
If you like action, though, it's the action movie of the weekend.
Yeah, for sure. All right, what else you got?
So then the last one is the LEGO Ninjago Movie, and it's the only family-friendly movie opening this weekend. So if you have kids and you need to get out of the house, this is probably what you're seeing. I'm sorry. You're not going to take them to see Kingsman, and you're definitely not going to take them to see Stronger. So it's my least favorite of the LEGO movies so far. I was really disappointed. Also, the first note I scribbled down when the credits came on was, oh, God, it's racist already. Because they have all this Chinese writing on it. I'm like, ninjas are Japanese people. Japanese. Come on. It might be me being overly picky, but I was like, oh,
that
the
seems like a pretty big thing.
And and it's super weird. So it starts live action, and it's this kid in an antique shop, and then Jackie Chan shows up as playing a character, not as Jackie Chan. He's not playing Jackie Chan, but he shows up as the shop owner, and does some Jackie Chan-esque gag, and then he goes into narrating this story, and it's always a really bad sign when a movie has 10 writers. This movie had, I think, 8 writers.
Oh,
and it's just a hodgepodge of whatever. And I was so upset. I love actual Lego sets, but I don't know anything about the Ninjago ones. But I assume this movie is a giant toy ad. The other ones are soft toy ads. This is pretty much a giant toy ad because I see no other reason to have made this movie. Yeah. Because it was so middling and mediocre. And I guess the premise is the LEGO Ninjagos are basically the Power Rangers meet Captain Planet. Each one of them has a power. Someone's lightning and someone's fire and someone's ice. And then they have giant Zord mechs that they get into and fight around. I was like, okay, none of this is original. That's fine. What is it? Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Yeah.
This is not very flattering. I'm so sorry about those original things. And I guess the idea is the Green Ninja is the son of Garmadon, who's the baddie, who always tries to destroy the city they're in. And I was just like, I've seen this before. We've all seen this before. I guess kids might not have seen this before, but they'll have seen this. They'll see it again. And it's this really weird, bland father-son bonding story. I'm just like, they could have done so much better. You had 8 people working on this and this is what you came up with? Come on, people. And I say come on, guys, because it was literally, I think it was all guys who wrote it. I was like, yep, that explains a lot of this. There's one token female Lego character. Oh no, there's two female Lego characters. And it's just I'm so disappointed in this. It's just so frustrating. And Justin Theroux plays Garmadon, and he basically does a Will Arnett impression the whole time, which is
that's weird.
Weird and annoying because Will Arnett is Lego Batman, and he was in the Lego movie, and then he voiced Lego Batman in the Lego Batman movie. And I was like, so you couldn't even get an original sounding character for this. You ripped off your own franchise so much and diluted it that you got another very famous person to play this and didn't bring anything I was just smacking my head the entire time. So I was really disappointed. I'm sorry to all the people who are going to be dragged to go see this because it's just and I love Legos. I think the original Lego Movie is one of the best animation films I've seen in a very long time. And there's always these weird one-off jokes or like little side gags that I think are very funny. And this had a few of those.
What was the first one called? Was it just,
It's just the Lego Movie?
Okay,
yeah,
so the
and
Batman one was what, 2?
So it was the Lego Movie, the Lego Batman movie, the Lego Ninjago movie, and then the Lego Movie and the Lego Batman movie have sequels coming out. I don't know if this is getting a sequel.
Oh,
Okay.
But they also don't tie together at all, which is very, well, I guess Lego Batman has Batman in both, but they like the universes don't make any sense together. And I think the first Lego Movie and Lego Batman, it's all about like they bring in a bunch of other pop culture stuff, which is kind of funny. You know, they like reference because it's Warner Brothers and they own all these other franchises. You know, you see these characters that pop up everywhere, and there's some amusement in that. This is its own world of lameness. So I was just like, this is skippable for me. But you know, again, if you really need something to do this weekend and you can't like stand the kids in the house and need them to be quiet for a while, like this, you might be willing to suffer through this.
Okay, so what are you giving it?
2.5 out of 5. Yeah, and I think that's being generous.
Yeah,
probably
It's from a kid's perspective.
Yeah.
But that was the thing, though. There were kids at the screening, and they weren't like Lego Batman movie. They were like, yeah, this. I did not hear a lot of reactions.
Really? That's
too.
so funny.
I
love
don't
when
know
kids
if
hate
like
things.
this is necessarily gonna land well even there. But you know, again, you have to buy 3 or 4 tickets usually when you go see a kids movie. So
Yep.
it's,
Send them in there by themselves. That's what my
just
mom
run
used to
around.
do.
Just
Yeah.
run around, kids.